Hi, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining our webinar today, Powering Successful Ad Campaigns with Agile Video Insight. Today, we're going to walk you through a case study of how our client, Microsoft, is using Video Insight to make key decisions in their creative process for successful ad campaigns. A couple quick housekeeping items before we start. First, this session's being recorded, so we'll share that recording with you all in the next couple of days. Secondly, we will be taking your questions at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to type any questions you might have into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. That being said, I will now turn over the presentation to our speaker today, Dave Carruthers, CEO and founder of Voxpopme. On to you, Dave.
Hi, good day, everybody. It's great to be here and sharing this bit of the story about how Microsoft are leveraging Voxpopme to power successful ad campaigns. My name is Dave Carruthers. I'm the CEO and founder of Voxpopme, and what I want to cover off today is how stories can be such a powerful weapon. You know, the ability to bring those customer insights to life, to bring these customer stories to life and share them across an organization has become an extremely kind of powerful weapon in the hands of insights professionals. And fundamentally, we believe that video is one of the best ways to bring those stories to life. When you think about video and its influence in the world today, video is everywhere. It's you know, Mark Zuckerberg recently said that, you know, Facebook is a video platform. You know, it's a medium that we're all consuming every day. We're all creating content, and people have become far more comfortable creating video than ever before. You know, Snapchat stories, Instagram stories, Facebook Live, Skype, FaceTime. We live in this kind of video first world. So how can we as researchers leverage that video trend? How can we engage our stakeholders and bring those stories to life? When we think about video and stories, you know, it has that memorability. Everyone can kind of remember. If you ask people to kind of recall stats from, you know, presentations they've been in and things like that, it's often very difficult, but they'll remember the story. They'll remember that, you know, oh, so-and-so said this, or this person said this. When we ask people to share their opinions via video in comparison to kind of a text-based response, I think the way we articulate things verbally is just far easier than what we're able to do in a kind of written, kind of open-end text box format. So it's very common for us to see kind of eight times more content when I think about those video responses when that same question is in a survey as both a text option and a video option. So being able to get those deeper and richer responses is obviously huge. As a medium, video is shared 12 times more than any other content because, you know, it's a medium people make that emotional connection with. And when we think about trying to influence stakeholders and how we get them to buy into whatever it is we're presenting, I think that emotional connection is a big part of what's often missing. You know, 90% of all decisions are based on that emotion, and, you know, too often we're very quick to present all of the rational reasons why a decision should be made, and video gives us a great opportunity to bring that face of the customer, that voice of the customer into that decision-making process and connect the dots up from an emotional perspective. And I think it's a trend we're also seeing, you know, in terms of, you know, executives are demanding more video. Certainly what we're seeing with our clients is a shift in terms of how they're looking for reporting. At a recent Forbes study, 70% of execs said they would prefer video to text-based alternatives. So I think we're seeing a real shift into how people want to consume insights, how people want to see that data, and how we can kind of combine both quantitative data with a richer qualitative output like video. So when we think about how video is used across that the kind of product or creative life cycle. At every stage, the more that you can bring that consumer voice into that process, we fundamentally believe that bringing that consumer voice in at each of these stages is extremely important. And if you're going to do this, the ability to be able to do this via video, I think is one of the most powerful ways that you can do this. Many on this call have probably used video in the past and worked with video, and there's often a lot of groans when people hear there's going to have to be video content, or how we're going to use this. We hear these horror stories of analysts working nights and weekends trying to decode hours and hours of videos and find the story within the data. And what we've really done at Voxpopme is we've obsessed over video, and we've obsessed over that process of how do we remove all of the pain points, all of those barriers that so often see video overlooked as something that can be included in research, because it adds too much pain, it adds too much hassle, it adds too much cost, whatever that might be. We've really tried to look at each of those stages, and we really see video as a process. It's broken down into kind of 3 key stages. Ultimately, first you've got to capture that video, from a multitude of different things. Then how do you analyze a lot of content at scale? You're not going to want to watch every single video. The traditional way of doing this would be to have someone watch all of these videos and manually code them and understand, oh well, Sue said this and Rob said this, and can you remember at what point he said that, and things like that. So how do you completely change that analysis process? And then finally, if you're going to capture rich feedback, on the front end it's a great consumer experience. On the analysis end, you're getting richer data, so you're able to understand a lot more of the why behind those decisions. But if you're going to go through all of that, it's really important that you socialize that data and share video, and video becomes a key fundamental part of that. And as I said, we've obsessed over every single stage of this. So on the capture side of things, quickly embed video questions into any surveys, or use our on-demand feedback, or capture video offline, or upload video content that you've got from other sources. There's a multitude of ways we can help with that. And then on the analytics side of things, as I said, you're not going to want to watch every single video. So, videos are quickly transcribed, they're sentiment scored, they're coded by themes. You can very quickly filter and say, show me all the negative things females, under 30 in this income bracket are saying about this particular theme or topic. And we're now seeing more and more automation into this. So very quickly we can create kind of automated summarization reels of that data. So really, really kind of making the system do as much of the heavy lifting as possible, whilst allowing the researcher to really kind of add their expertise and overlay kind of their perspective out of this data set. And then finally, sharing. If you're not going to get this content into the hands of executives, into the hands of decision makers, then you're missing a trick, because this is what they'll remember. This is what will bring that to life. This is what will help influence their decisions. So again, video editing historically has been a hugely time-consuming, specialized skill set. It won't play on so-and-so's machine. They haven't got the right codec. Oh, it takes 2 hours to render the video. With what we've been able to build, we've made something that's very point and click. Anyone can use it. You can bring in data points, logos, and things like that, and really start to share compelling 2-3 minute videos that really bring something to life. So let's talk a bit about how Microsoft's used this technology. How have they taken video and made it kind of front and center in their research? And what I want to talk through, and many of you have probably seen the latest Microsoft ads. I think they're fantastic. But back to that first quote: stories are the most powerful weapon in a leader's arsenal. But stories are also incredibly impactful in advertising, and we've seen this, over time. The more an advert can tell a story, and you can create that emotional connection between the people watching an advert and that brand, the better the ad performs. So Microsoft have launched this campaign of ads, which for an ad campaign has been running for a relatively long period of time, and I think that shows the effectiveness of the campaign that they're running. But what they're really trying to do here is bring people's real stories to life, and how Microsoft's technologies and products and software impacts on them. And some of these are business people, family people, people with causes and things like that. But there's always a great connection and a great kind of story behind how Microsoft's technology has impacted. It's away from bells and whistles and features and things like this. It's much more about the people and how these amazing people are leveraging the technology. So Microsoft's research department came to us and they said, how can you help us determine the best people to work with, and who are the people who are the stories that are going to resonate most with this group. So the objectives were twofold. First, we needed to help them answer the simple question of who should we use. We've got multiple people we're considering for this ad spot. Who should we use? And secondly, even when we were able to help them with that decision, was there anything they should know about the person that they'd gone with that could help them kind of make the production better? And I'll talk about a little bit in a second about what stage this was actually at, because it was a lot earlier in the process than this typical testing is done. And then on the requirements side of thing, what they were really looking for was to get that, that clearly there's a million and one ways they could have just tested this ad and got, quantitative feedback, but they were really looking for something that was a lot more qualitative in nature, a lot more nuanced, and diving into those people and the initial reactions, but at scale. They wanted to do qual at scale, but they also needed this fast. We've tested over 50 characters now, and more often than not, we'll get a new character on a Wednesday afternoon and be needing to provide findings back on Friday morning. So that's kind of under 48 hours to get this into field, get the responses, do the analysis, provide the data sets and the reels that can then be shared with the kind of key decision makers making this. So speed was important, and qual scale was important as well. So the methodology we developed with Microsoft was using our kind of Voxpopme feedback solution. What we would do, we would recruit 70 GenPop consumers for each region, country that we were testing in, for each individual concept. So each person would only see one concept. They would respond to that concept. And let me talk a little bit about the concept. These were not highly polished adverts. These were these real people, these characters, telling their Microsoft story in essentially a kind of Skype interview. There was no kind of animation or polish around it or anything. It wasn't like an early cut of the ad. This was very much an initial reaction to them as a human being. How believable was their story? What were they annoying in some way? Did people find them obnoxious? Like what were some of the initial kind of reactions to seeing that person talk about their story? And as well as getting that qualitative, once we'd got that initial reaction, we then started to get people to rate those characters based on kind of 5 key closed-ended questions, which were important to Microsoft, which was likability, relatability, authenticity, and believability. So this framework, as I say, has been something that it was important. It was standardized, that we came up with something that they could run all of these characters through, that could be quick turn, and that kind of that speed and repeatability was a key thing for what they were looking to do. So what I want to do now is show you just some clips of some of the feedback, and for this particular example we're going to give, they were considering 2 different characters. They were pretty set on this. Obviously they have an advertising agency and people that help find these stories and surface them, and they'd already done a first cut of kind of who they want, and they were pretty nailed on that. We're going to use this person for the US, we're going to use this person for the international campaign, and we're good to go. So the first video I'm going to share is just some people talking about their initial reaction to that first person who was scheduled to be in the US campaign.
I think some of her ideas about the art were kind of cool, what she was doing.
She seemed nice, friendly, kind. She showed what she was doing about artwork she painted. So she was doing a lot of fidgeting with her hands. She had her hands on her shoulder. She kept doing things like this and just like looking up and laughing nervously.
I found the person fairly annoying.
I thought she had a whiny voice, whiny sounding. It wasn't interesting what she did. Didn't think she could draw that well either.
So some pretty negative feedback in there, and people going into a lot of different things. Some of the feedback was around how she was acting on camera. Some of the feedback was very much around, they didn't really believe, this was supposed to be some inspiring artist, that what she was actually doing was that impressive. So what we saw with this character was a lot of that negative feedback that really kind of came through and gave the team some concern. Now let's look at some of the responses to the second character, and this character is scheduled to be used in the international campaign.
She was, you could tell that she really liked what she does or loved what she does.
I absolutely loved her. I thought she was super inspirational.
She seems very excited about her work, very happy about what she's doing, and she makes you interested in what it is that she's saying.
She's very talented, and her drawings were fantastic.
I absolutely love the fact that she is taking it upon herself to get our youth interested in reading.
She's very believable, very engaging, and you wanted to see more of what she was doing.
So as you can see from those responses, and obviously that's just a very small kind of subset of the total responses collected, but it's kind of night and day between character 1 and character 2. So once we got this feedback, once we looked at this rich feedback, and then also looked at the scores and how they compared and contrasted, it became completely obvious to everyone around the table that actually character 2 was a much stronger character, and ultimately that is who Microsoft ended up choosing for both the international campaign and also replacing the character they'd selected for the US campaign, and running this ad spot in both the US and internationally. Now, I talked a little bit more earlier about this wasn't just about deciding which was the best character, because these were rough initial interviews before this ad went into production, before they started to kind of actually build the ad. There was also some really interesting feedback that was coming out of these videos that could kind of be used to make sure they kind of didn't have a miss, or there wasn't a kind of, what were the big watch outs for that might derail the campaign, that was something they hadn't even considered, but actually was starting to come out, from these videos. So whilst it was overwhelming positivity around character 2, there was also a big watch out that came out, which completely changed the direction of the ad and removed something. So I'll just kind of share that video quickly.
What shocked me was the fact that she wants to show children a picture of a shark snatching the seal or sea lion.
I was shocked for a minute because it seemed so gory, just for a split second.
I think she has to be careful with depending on the age group, because some of the other pictures were as graphic as the one I saw. I mean, it could be a little scary for some kids.
But they'll need to see a shark killing a sea animal.
So yeah, that one of the things that came out was in the early things, as she started to describe what she was doing and showing some examples of the work and things like that. A lot of the people that were giving feedback, commented on this and picked up on this, that they felt that it was maybe going a little bit too far. It was a children's illustrator, and it didn't need to be, it didn't need to show nature as nature to that level, and maybe wasn't appropriate. So, small tweak on the script and just a slight thing, but it's definitely something that you can, I know for sure without this type of prompting and video feedback, definitely wouldn't have come out with kind of a more standardized kind of quantitative approach, and just a ratings thing. Being able to get into that mindset has been huge. So let's have a look at the ad and what actually finally went live, and then let's see how that compared to kind of standardized kind of Microsoft and Millward Brown norms.
When kids get really excited about my children's books, that's the best reaction. What's great about Paint 3D, it's exciting to see a shark come to life and come off the page. When the work creates a feeling in a kid, it feels great. It's addictive. You want to keep doing it.
So you've probably seen that advert being aired over the last 6 months or so. So a really powerful ad. That was just a 15-second spot. Obviously there was a couple of different versions of it for different ad spot lengths. But what was the impact? Obviously all of this is great, but what was the actual impact on the campaign itself, and how did it perform? And this is, I think, the key. So obviously, Microsoft's pre-tested all their ads before they go in market. Do that through, Millward Brown, and in comparison to kind of the standard kind of Microsoft's ads, this was on the 100th percentile for breakthrough, 98th percentile in compared to kind of the full Millward Brown link database. So huge increase in breakthrough, and also performed extremely well from a persuasion perspective. So at this point during pre-testing, everyone's pretty pumped. They're thinking this is going to be a good ad. This has got some great potential, but how's it going to perform in market? And the in-market performance obviously mirrored this uplift as well. There was exceeded goals on purchase intent by 5 points, exceeded perceptions by 6 points, and just as you can see, kind of way above the norm there. Over the kind of initial 7-week period that it was tracked through. So all of this shows kind of by taking a different approach, working together with Voxpopme, Microsoft, and reimagine how it did its ad testing, how it got more feedback earlier on in that design phase, rather than kind of once it was a kind of finished article. It's made a huge impact on their business. And I think it's a testament to the impact that's seeing, that we've now run kind of 50 characters through this test, and we're doing it in multiple different countries, and it's something they know they can kind of rely on and use regularly, and be turned around in what is a very short window, as there's their production cycles and their ad campaigns go and change over time. So with that in mind, I just want to kind of wrap up the call with just a couple more thoughts on, this was a great example of how, big organizations like Microsoft has brought video into one very small piece of their organization in terms of that ad testing thing. So I wanted to kind of just provide some color and some ideas and inspiration about other ways we're seeing video being introduced. And one of the big trends that we've seen over the past 2 years, and I remember in the early days of Voxpopme, people would say, Dave, this is really interesting, but we're just looking for the right project. And the fact of the matter is, and we're seeing this more and more, there is no right project for video. Every piece of research you're doing can be improved and enhanced by bringing real people into that, and bringing video into that delivery, being able to see the people and have video as part of the reporting. We're seeing it more and more and more. Clients say, this is great, but where are the real people behind this story? I want to hear from them, and I want to see them. And previously, video was something that had to be done in a very siloed approach. It couldn't really integrate with quant. It was, it added a lot of time. And what we've really tried to do is work to understand, if people are looking to do more and more video, they're looking to bring these studies to life, how can we help them do that in a quick and efficient way that doesn't derail what the processes that they're already doing? So the example we just gave was a great example of video feedback, getting that feedback, showing some concept, a mixture of quantitative and qualitative questions, some ratings and some open questions. But there's a ton of different ways that clients are leveraging this video technology. Probably outside of feedback, the biggest two are video discovery and video moments. Discovery is really like this video interview where the survey actually becomes 5 to 10 video questions. There's no kind of ratings questions or survey questions within there. We're recruiting an audience that matches kind of who we're looking to talk to, and then we're asking them to go deep on these questions and record 2 or 3 minutes of content in response to each question. This is something that's definitely changing the way clients are thinking about how would I conduct IDIs, when's a focus group appropriate, when is there something I can do in a more agile way, in a more scalable way, across geographies and quick turn in 24 hours. How can I hear from 60 consumers and get 10-15 minutes of content from each of them? So discovery has been a huge something that a lot of clients are leveraging. And of course, moments. How do we capture, video is so powerful and so kind of ubiquitous now, being able to get people to capture video at key moments of truth, whether it's experience in a project, product or service, post reaction to some kind of experience, whether it's something in store in that shopper experience, being able to do video diary studies and capture video at different points and key moments of truth has been, again, something else that we've seen a lot of brands moving towards. So realistically, there's a ton of different ways, whether it's tracker studies that can be brought to life, whether it's video content that you've got from other platforms, or more in-person interviews and you want just quicker ways to bring that, to analyze that content, or just you've got a survey that does something and you just want to add video opens in. There's a whole different way and range of solutions that we're working with brands like Microsoft and Clorox and Verizon to build out these products and solutions that can answer real problems. And that's what gets us most excited, is taking this technology and figuring out how it can be used to solve these business challenges. So with that said, for us, we believe it's time to start seeing the people behind the insights. It's time to start bringing video into every single project that you're doing. And I'd love to take any questions that anyone's got. Thank you all so much for taking half an hour out of your day to attend, and I'd love to hear any questions. And there's a link here if you'd like to follow up and so on, to get in touch and talk a bit more, give you a bit more details on the case study, share some other case studies, or how does the technology actually work and what can and can't we do. We'd love to talk. So Jen, I don't know if you've got any questions that have come in during the session, but I'd love to try and answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of questions in. Just a reminder, if you have questions, please type them into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Earlier in the presentation, you spoke a little bit about sentiment. Can you talk a little more about how that scoring is done within the analysis piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So sentiment is, a huge part of our engine. We're looking at kind of initially, you've got all these video responses. The first thing is, how do you quantify what people are saying? How do you break it down into the key themes that are important? And sentiment, what we're looking at is, we're not just providing sentiment on an individual video level, like, hey, this video is quite positive. We're actually going down to that theme level. So not only are we just saying, oh, well, this sentence was pretty positive, we're actually able to detect multiple objects within that sentence. So imagine the sentence, the burger is fantastic, but the milkshake was terrible. That isn't a sentence with mixed sentiment. That is a sentence where they are absolutely loving the burger and absolutely hating on the milkshake. So our engine's actually able to start to detect that, and qualify sentiment across multiple themes and multiple concepts, and understand that. So that's definitely something that we've really tried to leverage, because when you're trying to find the story within the data, sentiment's such a big driver as how you want to split that data and find the story.
Great, thank you. Lots of great questions coming in. What is the story formula used by researchers within brands to connect the organization to the insights, creating change?
Yeah, so I mean, okay, I'm gonna, in terms of the story formula, I guess I'm thinking, is this kind of like the hero, the villain, that type of thing, the strong, the beginning, the middle, and the end and stuff. I mean, I think the storytelling techniques, the tried and tested storytelling techniques, and the way that we kind of build a character or a particular pain point, and set the scene, I think is important. I think the way that clients are, essentially, I guess, historically we've presented a lot of data to clients, and being able, they kind of tend to usually either get data or story. I think being able to kind of merge into the story the significant data points, because just video alone feels very kind of like, well, you've always got that pushback, well, hey, well, that's just a couple of people's perspective. Or firstly, what you can do to that is say, okay, well, here you go, here's a link, here's another 74 people that say that you can watch the videos like, but being able to talk to both that rational and emotional side of the brain. So you still need to, it's important, I think, that that story connects with, people who think more rationally and also think people who think more emotionally.
Great. How long does it typically take to set up and enable a survey within Voxpopme?
Yeah, so in terms of setting up a survey, there's a couple of different ways we can do that. If you're looking to just push a question or a couple of questions out to our on-demand app community, that can be literally done in less than 10 minutes, and you'll have probably 50 to 100 videos within an hour to 2 hours. So that's a very fast way to do that. You're also able to go into the platform and set up a video open question that you can embed into whatever your kind of survey weapon of choice is. So if you're a big Qualtrics user, or you use Fuel Cycle, or Confirm It, whatever platform you're using to script your surveys, Voxpopme can integrate into any platform. So you're able to drop that question into the survey, very, very easily. It's probably 15 to 20 minutes work just the first time you do it to drop that in and decide what data you want to pass alongside that survey.
Next question is about the Microsoft study specifically. Did the client do any other development or assessment qualitative for the creative development, or was this project the only qualitative research step?
This project was the only qualitative research step at this stage. Yeah, as you saw, they did the kind of more standardized milled brand link pre-testing. But yeah, in terms of kind of the ad agency they use sources the candidates and does an initial screen. So that's I guess that's less kind of qualitative research and more just a kind of the ad agency evaluating stories and picking their favorite 3 or 4 that they think might work. At that stage, we're getting the research involved. But yeah, this was the only qualitative piece.
Great. I'm going to try to combine a couple of questions that are kind of similar. Can you talk a little bit about operationalizing closed-ended questions alongside the open-end video questions?
Yeah, so I mean, in relation to this Microsoft study, I think it was important. They wanted the nuance of the qualitative feedback and the video feedback to really truly understand people's reactions and things that weren't going to come through within a score. We always use video. We always say, video brings out the why. The survey will give you the what. So okay, right, they score. This person scores 20% lower on likability, but why is that? What are some of the things that we're seeing within that? So it was important that we had some kind of standardized scoring framework as a way to kind of rank those as well. But what we didn't want to do was look at either in isolation. The scoring was obviously important and played a role, but we were kind of more and was able to do an initial cut on some things. Clearly if someone scores pretty low, kind of regardless of what people are saying about them. But again, I think as well that was a kind of it improved the process, because again, even the people that didn't resonate well, we were able to loop that feedback back to the agency. So again, in terms of their efficiency on recruiting people, that has improved over time, because as we start to learn as to certain things that do and don't work, I think that combination of the metrics and the qualitative input's been huge.
Great. Okay, we'll do one more question. Can you just talk a bit more, you touched on this earlier in the presentation as well, can you talk a bit more about how the reporting technology has evolved for video over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I think what we're seeing is obviously, a lot of research reports are, driven by, PowerPoints and presentations and, lots and lots of slides and stuff. And I think the trend, what we're seeing with a lot of our clients, is that now they've got the ability to build these kind of hybrid videos that kind of can bring in those statistical pieces of data. They can bring in, the video clips alongside images and other slides and things like that. That video becomes a lot more a lot more digestible, and we're also seeing that data being used wider across the organization. So people coming back into the platform and looking up, we did that 3 months ago. What was someone saying about that? Actually, I remember there was something about this. I just need some quick video content for a particular presentation or particular question. So I think there's obviously that ability to continue to mine that data, and too often these reports sit on, kind of gather dust on someone's shelf. And then a great example, one of our clients, Clorox, we do a ton of video studies for them every month, pulling in different kind of customer feedback, customer journey experiences with products, how they're using different products within their home, pain points, things like that. That video content, we create an hour-long video with subtitles every single month that's on their executive floors in their offices in Oakland, constantly playing with customer feedback, because for them as a company, the customer is at the heart of everything they do, and they want their employees, as they're walking around, seeing this kind of ongoing customer feedback. So I think, video is such a great way to kind of keep that customer top of mind, and also reduce the gap between, I think within many companies, the gap that exists between senior leadership and the end consumer can be very substantial, and it can bring it to life in a very real way.
Great. Well, there are a few questions left, but I think in the interest of time, we'll probably reach out to anyone we didn't get to directly. So thank you all for joining, and thanks, Dave, for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It's been great to share. You can reach me via email at dave@voxpopme, and there's a link on the slide right now, and I think Jen's put it into the chat as well. So if anyone wants any more detail, we'd love to talk, and thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today.